and welcome back to Literally Literary. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to check out our previous episodes. This episode, we are continuing our discussion on the Fives Stages of Stuttering by Cassie Holguin-Pettinato. Today, we'll be discussing parts 3, 4, and 5 of her collection.
Awesome.
Yay!
Be back.
How are you guys doing?
Staying cool.
Super duper.
Yeah. How are you?
Good. Excited, to finish up Cassie's book.
And closer to our 100th episode.
Yeah.
Where we'll be able to interview her.
Yeah. One way. And actually, before I forget, hopefully we can post this episode before the interview so that if you guys have any questions that you want to ask Cassie, we can add a poll to the, a blank, what's it called? Just like a question, answer to Spotify. And then if you're on like Apple Podcasts or some other podcast catcher, you can also leave a voice message and we can maybe even read your question. If not, at least read out your question ourselves.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Also, I guess if you're following us on Instagram, maybe we'll make a post where we can have people use this question sticker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So if you guys are checking it out. Speaking of interacting with our content, part 1 did require a couple corrections during the editing process. One is, I don't know how this happened. My mind's a mess. That's how it happened. When I was talking about first meeting Cassie, I don't know why I kept saying tumble words. I meant papagayo. So weird. Because I was kind of already thinking about Donna Snyder, who runs Tumble Words. I was kind of melding them together.
Yeah.
But I was embarrassed hearing that. I was like, why do I keep saying Tumble Words?
Yeah.
Now, Cassie has done Tumble Words, by the way. So anyone's listening, all you aspiring writers, Tumble Words is a great community writing project. It's currently run by my friend Kit Wren. Nowadays, and so if you want to write stuff, it's a generative writing workshop. So the idea is you just sit down and you write, and then you share what you wrote. That's it. No excuses, and then it's a chill thing. So I wanted to make that correction because I do feel bad, papagayo, and I did mention Isela Fulton. That's the connection anyway. So through context, I think people knew papagayo. The other one, you were talking about the workshop that Cassie and Aldo were doing. It wasn't a workshop. It was a
little fun thing that they were just doing during work. I said poets.org was where they found the poem, but it was the Poetry Foundation.
Yeah, and it was a poem called Mad by Layla Chadi.
Yes, yeah.
Which it was in the form of Mad Libs piece, so you could, it was interactive, which, so yeah, those are some corrections. Maybe we should do this all the time, damn.
Yeah.
Fact check. It's a popular thing in some other podcasts.
No, we never make mistakes.
Oh.
No, nope. You know what? That's true. I guess if we did, people would tell us.
Yeah.
That's the way the internet works.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. No. Or they just haven't found the way to comment yet. Anyway, cool. Just had to offer those revisions.
Yes.
All right.
So part 3 of the collection is blocks, which we connected to bargaining in the stages of grief.
Yeah. So how are blocks and bargaining connected? She does a lot of, I think even more so moving forward in these 3 sections. She's very experimental in her form, in forms.
Yeah.
So with blocking, she represents it in several different ways. Brackets with nothing in between. And then in the next one, there's a literal blackout spots. So I thought those were very interesting. And then semantically what they do to the lines there.
Yeah. And also the spacing. I think she plays a lot with the spacing.
Yeah. Oh, and spacing and jamming columns non-linear. There's a lot of experimentation. So I can see why Cheryl Luna was talking about that in the blurb. So okay, this is where it really picks up.
I think something else I noticed in these last 3 parts of the collection was that some of the previous stages, I'm blanking out.
We need our cheat sheet.
Yeah, I'm like, where's my little cheat sheet? The prolongations and the repetitions also continue throughout the collection. And I really liked that because this collection's really heavy on healing, and healing is not a linear process either. So sometimes you backtrack a little bit and ultimately you do work on your healing, but it's not a linear process. So I really enjoyed that some of those other stages do make appearances throughout the rest of the collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it's usually the prolongations of the blocks that I think most of us consider when we think about stuttering, like the sound wise, right?
Oh, and actually, that does remind me. I did do my homework for the adaptability. I don't know if you guys did.
Nope, too busy. It was a busy week.
Yeah, I know you guys had a lot going on this week.
So tell us about it.
Maybe in the
Patreon.
yeah.
Please no.
Yeah. No, but so the adaptability video is a segment of the New York Times, and one of those segments is on stuttering, but it covers disabilities in terms of how it is that people perceive disabilities. So there's like another one on like face blindness. The one for stuttering is really interesting because it's about how people have misconceptions about stuttering, thinking it's like a speech impediment, but it's neurological.
Yeah.
And then also, so in the video, they like remove all the stuttering to make it sound like it's just someone who doesn't stutter through like this machine called like the de-stuttering machine or something like that. But they explore like the 5 kinds of stuttering. So yeah, it's really interesting. Cool. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
But yeah, I mean, just kind of being aware of like how we perceive the work, how we perceive, not just the the different blocks or whatever it might be.
Should we start that sentence over?
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
It's my fault. I didn't think it was gonna be that loud.
But I guess more broadly, like how we perceive the pain, the suffering, and the in terms of like the 5 stages of grief as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great expansion too of Vanessa's point. Like it's more complex and thorough and deep and nonlinear.
Recursive.
Exactly. Yeah. Looking at the list of the types of disfluencies just reminds me of like when I talk about the writing process with students, like pre-writing, drafting, revision, editing, like and we know, of course, it's just not doing it in a line like that, right? We go back again always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. The way out. I don't know if anyone has that one.
I think blackout poetry is always a really interesting exercise and what we choose to black out. And I think here there's a lot of the pivotal moments that are being blacked out in this poem. So it kind of leaves us wanting more. That's the note that I made, like trying to guess like what's in those spaces,
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because the way I also see blackout poetry is when they create a new poem through the blackout.
Yeah.
But this one is more about the space that is missing that.
Yeah, or redacted. I think of this, CIA, FBI documents when they're declassified, and there's always the spots that are still like blacked out.
Yeah.
This kind of, I kind of connect this one a little bit in instances to the kittens again. Thinking about like these, now you have babies, the NICU unit and crying babies, and there's these hints of, missing body parts or, and want to care for them, that kind of need that's paralleled, I think, throughout the collection. Plus, I do like the way it ends. Like, we don't get the answer, and isn't that like life? The way out is, we don't know. No way out.
Yeah. And then the what you mentioned about the the deformed baby and this idea of like the NICU as like a haunted house, it reminded me of Silent Hill. Because you do get a lot of that kind of imagery in Silent Hill, and it's part of what makes it so. To me, it's the most disturbing experience I've ever had. Like even more than film, because it is, of course, what's the word? When you feel like you're in it. Immersive.
Yeah.
So that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Okay. I'm gonna have to
Yeah. And then just like hearing the crying babies when you're walking through like the dark hallways and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good connection.
No one is here to care for them. I think there's like this idea of like abandonment and like orphans, like that kind of also pops up throughout the collection.
But I guess this also goes with the block, because like the block in a literal sense, right, is like you're blocked from, and there's no escape. So
Oh yeah, it's a good turn on that. It's a good. I mean, so we're talking about it, but again, if you guys don't have a copy, like definitely pick it up because she's doing a lot with the form here too. Not just the blacked out words, but you said Vanessa like white space as well.
Yeah.
That I think are worth looking deep, like further into as a reader. Yeah. So I think before the poems for each section, she also has like a little like phrase or statement that I guess exemplifies the example, right? So I want peace, right? Because the way that blocks are described is no sound is produced and then a burst, right? Like so, it's like an emphasis is placed on it. There's a pause, an emphasis. I want peace. So
yeah, the epigraph.
yeah, which is an interesting way of doing epigraphs in this piece.
Did anyone have first love on 30?
I thought it was interesting how she uses plus signs.
Or crosses.
Yeah.
Crosses. Oh, that I mean, well, I thought a cross would have been like longer, like a T. Why is it a lowercase t? You know that joke? No, but it's true. It makes sense.
Yeah. And it's another poem where we do see the failure of the church to help the speaker.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to have pieces where the speaker really wants to save others and help others, and then other pieces are feeling that helplessness of wanting to be saved and not having that.
And it's this idea of the church as a sanctuary, right? Because it starts, I ran into a church building to hide from him. And yet, I mean, we see it so much, right? Like it's kind of almost a trope of like demonic films and literature. But here, I mean, just so many things that the speaker tries to do, whether it's praying, repenting, ministry, confession, even like being a missionary, but none of that works.
No. You brought up the haunted house thing. It kind of, going back to Border Simulator with Gabe Dosal, Zombie Jesus. Here you have the ghosting, which we know ghosting is the lack of response, but ghosting could also be like a haunting. Back to the haunted house theme.
Yeah.
We get that like toxic behavior in the partner in this poem, but also like that toxicity that can come from the church.
Yeah. And I think in the previous sections she had talked about like, I mean, that's a big thing too, right? Is community. But here, I mean, she emphasizes it in sections here, right? Where it's all kind of added together. Study, ministries, laying of hands. That's, a lot of community around you, but ultimately feeling like alone. Despite that. I mean, also, you kind of have the acknowledgement that, like, she talks about Ireland and wanting to go, and just maybe the realization that, like, if she had gone, it wouldn't have helped at that point. So she needed to go through other stuff first. Right. Instead of going as a missionary to Ireland.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of books where we've talked about either the speaker or the protagonist running away from things, and it still kind of follows them. So, yeah, it's interesting to see that this speaker kind of recognizes even the running away wouldn't have saved them.
I mean, well, speaking of more horror, because it seems we're on that vein today, reminds me of It Follows also, if you guys have seen it. And which itself, right? I mean, it's kind of a metaphor for like STDs and like, how they're passed on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Let's try to find the horror connection in each of these poems.
Yeah.
What do you think about the capitalization? So in the last time, it's last in time or not capitalized.
Yeah, and if you go look in the notes on page 70, it is capitalized there. And it's inspired by an interpretive dance, Lost Mind by Sarah Silken.
Lost Mind, yeah. More homework. Check it out. I like going back and looking at like references and kind of what inspires certain pieces. It's kind of like, for me, like when I listen to like music, so much of music is like based off of samples of other like previous generations, and I don't know why, just like being able to like source the sample, there's something very gratifying and meaningful in it, and I think it's also true like in poetry collections when. So I like that. She does a great job of referencing her sources and acknowledgments there. It's like it makes the book more interactive.
Going back to your question, Richie, about like the capitalization, I feel like it's not capitalized because it's not final. Like it's the last time, but it's not. I guess like in the speaker's mind, it's not the last time that they ever will. Like it's not the last time, but this is the last.
Conceptually, it's not like. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I'm like, does that even make sense, you guys?
I mean, that's what I would have ventured into thinking, you know.
It's like not definitive.
Yeah,
Like I think if you capitalized it, it's like this is the last time. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
A huge collection of this. A huge segment of this collection is like grief for the loss of this brother, right, from the speaker.
And in here, I guess when he was out, deployed, right, in Afghanistan, it seems, because of the, like in the note, it's like Pashto, but Middle East, right, to be safe.
Yeah, it's the tactical course, yeah. So just like common phrases.
But I guess interesting that it's also meant to be like an interpretive dance. So.
Yeah, so again, structurally, right, she's doing a lot of space jumping. Which I think in this one, some, but in others, like it really captures a little bit of the chaos of trying to understand complex feelings and like slowly come to that acceptance that I think ultimately we think about when people are dealing with grief, trying to lead towards, at least. Yeah.
I like the closing in stanza 3.
Yeah.
Leaving me with a shell of who you once used to be. The pun there of the artillery shell and the shell of a person.
I think also this last one really communicates PTSD really well, of remembering who her brother was, and then now seeing that he's no longer this person, but just like a shell of who he used to be.
Yeah. And that interpretive dance is called Lost Mind, and like in the second part, she talks about the last time I saw my brother, his head was attached to his body. So again, like that losing, that loss of his mind. Yeah. What went missing. Yeah, it's powerful. I really liked Becoming Salt. I like those poems that can be read like left to right, top to bottom.
Yeah.
That one's really cool. The columns, because of the pillars of salt, Lot's wife. She does reference that a couple of times in these last two sections. I think stage 4 or stage 5, she references Lot's wife again. So a lot of those biblical allusions and references. Lot's wife, of course, turned back when she was told not to, because she was kind of like yearning for her past, for those things, and then she becomes a pillar of salt. So that's a really great metaphor for the speaker also, and her yearning or transformation. as well.
It is interesting reading them from top to bottom.
That's how I read it first, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it second. First, I did it normal left to right, down. But then I read them down like, damn, this is really good.
No, yeah, I read them top to bottom first.
But did you read them bottom to top? Like I did? In reverse?
And right to left.
Diagonal.
Dang, actually it does sound really cool too. I'm like, and I became salt 3 times, and on a tray I became waters of rage, and until I let go, so I became its. No, okay, syntax messed up that one there, but I became waters of rage. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Here's another, not just the last, but the first, right, in her remnants piece. And I just highlighted the last piece. I thought it was a pretty powerful finisher on that, right? My mouth says, I'm more grief than woman. Yeah, that makes me think a lot of her first book. I mean, obviously this collection, her first book, but also a lot of the work she did with her shadow boxes, the art that she was doing. She talked a lot about grief on those too. I wonder if you guys had any others on that one.
I think my strong line was also that one that you mentioned, Richie, but also in the second stanza, everything I do as a mother is for the first and last time. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of moms who want to have more kids but aren't able to. And so they also have to grieve that inability to have more kids as well.
And then just kind of continuing the theme of, looking at the medical experience for women. We get the T-bow ligation, the IUD. Yeah, so the female anatomy.
Plus kind of adding to the neurological, you have the my brain and mouth, like kind of the reaction of brain hears and mouth says.
Yeah. And that idea too that like motherhood makes you more of like that's part of being a woman is wanting to have children or being able to have children. And so I think that's why that last line is so powerful because the stanza before, I had to burn my fallopian tubes. And when women have to go through this for whatever reason, or removing of the uterus or anything like that, that's a huge, process physically and emotionally and psychologically. Like losing that womanhood, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a super powerful way to end that poem.
And it goes back to the idea of like cutting off parts of yourself that we've talked about.
Amputation.
Yeah, that made me think of the Barbies later on.
We get more of the cosmic imagery in the next poem.
This one was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I really liked this one too.
Yeah, just I guess explain the concept, and then again her form here kind of representing a lot of that anxiety and tension of no punctuation, everything rushed together, and it captures so well what she's describing here of just feeling kind of like being out of control, right? When you are a passenger on when someone else is, and the effect it has on her, right?
Yeah.
And even though they crash, I like this line here of like her entire body crashing, kind of being always tensed up like that. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to what you said about the lack of punctuation as a kind of prose poem in a way, it reminds me, I don't know if you remember, Richie, in Dr. Capel's class, we read one of Ben's poems that was also in this form about the whitest violence. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to remember the name, and it might even be like unpublished because like I haven't found which collection it's from. But
man, that's a good memory.
Yeah, it really impacted me. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I haven't seen it anywhere since we read that in the class.
Yeah, I liked the use of no punctuation in this one because in the beginning she mentions going 100 miles per hour, and having that just made me feel like I was going 100 miles an hour. And then even I've never taken a full breath, and And then another one of my strong lines was, I haven't gone deep inside of myself to pull me out. So just also like this idea of being trapped in that car too.
Which goes back to blocks. The theme of blocks and the cosmic imagery, right, of the
black holes.
Yeah. Plus, even like, again, the biblical, right? The creator, the father, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
More of the military imagery too, with the my whole body went into its shell and waited for the explosion.
Oh, man, I think that's why this one really struck, because it just was like a condensed form of a lot we've been reading, and it was like really encapsulated. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good enjambment in the next one, prophecies. Right, she was his secret agent, right? There's a couple nice moments like that. And again, you have the more blocks, and I guess these, what we call them, bracketed blanks. I don't know, it's not a technical term, but you guys know what I mean. Oh yeah, sorry, we're moving on.
Go ahead.
I was just looking at like, again, like thinking about decisions. Like on prophecies, it's G dash 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 D. You'd think it would be God, but why are there so many dashes there instead of just G dash D or whatever? So I just thought that was a very interesting way of putting it down on the page.
Decisions and revisions.
That's right. Well, this is the stage 4.
Yep. Interjections or depression.
In terms of the 4 stages, it's interesting. It's such a late stage for there to be depression and grief, because to me, I mean, but
that should be closer to the beginning, like stage 1.
Or maybe it's always there, but maybe it's more pronounced at one stage in particular.
Because it's more chronic, maybe.
I feel like it makes sense to be the 4th one, because you're getting towards that acceptance, so you're feeling that sadness before you accept what's happened. Whereas first you're trying to like argue it, and
denial, you have to acknowledge it,
block it out.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you all think of the play, pause, skip forward, and at the well?
I heard the sounds in my head as I read it. Like I'm that kind of reader where I hear it in my head. So I heard the click, like a button being pushed, and like even like, I mean, this is maybe if you're under a certain age, you might not remember the sound, but like the VCR sound, rewinding and fast forwarding, or a cassette. It's ancient technology, kids. Just kidding. Is there anything this day that replicates that?
I feel like cassettes are coming back.
What?
No, aren't they not?
I
don't know. Maybe maybe I'm just thinking of the wrong people. I don't know.
Fashion cyclical. So but vinyl makes more sense for comeback than like cassette, because that stuff like messes up so easily. Which I guess is kind of the cool part, right? Anyway, sorry, that was like a little deviation.
I liked it. For me, with like the pauses, it was like when you feel still and you feel stuck in a place in your life, kind of, and you're having to reflect on like what's happening and where you're at. And then I connected like the skip forward to like blacking out and losing certain memories. So I really enjoyed those. What did you guys think?
The water imagery is kind of interesting. I didn't get to explore it further, but I do think it's interesting how it's mentioned throughout. Also, just the imagery of crying out dead springs of water. Wow. So she's really nailing it in a lot of these last lines. I think. And I think that's also maybe a product of like. No, I don't want to say anything incorrect here, but I mean, I do think that lends itself to like really great performance, because it's kind of like the last thing someone hears, and it's just like this powerful statement that leaves, you leave the readers with.
It'd be interesting if once there's an ebook for this, which I don't think it's out yet, right? Or
I haven't looked.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of get some of the sound effects of what you're saying, for the play, pause, skip forward.
Oh, you mean the audiobook?
The audiobook, yeah, the audiobook.
Oh,
okay. I was thinking of the ebook as like a text. We should ask her
Yeah.
about that. That'd be a great thing. She's on, like, if she has any plans. She plans to record it anywhere in particular, with who, or because I've seen poets with their audiobooks who do like sound design too, and get to have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could add like running water, or barking dogs, ER sounds. There's a lot of options for like sound design. Anything else on that one?
No, I know in the notes she mentions John 4:18, but I'm not sure I understand the connection.
What does it say?
The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. And then in some explanations, it's saying, the one who knows Christ in true fellowship lives for him and does not need to fear future punishment.
Any biblical scholars at the table?
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't know.
I'm trying to connect it, but I'm having a hard
I
time.
mean, you have the husband right here,
Yeah.
present. Walked to the door. My husband saw the look on my face and knew his answer. Huh. That's something I wanted to explore when she was here, to just think about more of the biblical references.
And John is more like he's more like surreal in a way than the other 3 that are more just kind of the facts,
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Now I know.
The shop.
I really liked this one too. I guess just like the duality of who her father was when he's in his shop versus when he's not in his shop. He just seems so loving and caring versus the father that we just saw going 100 miles per hour, not really having any concerns about her. This one, there's just more love and care and like softness to him in the shop. So it's interesting to see kind of that contrast.
Yeah, I like the way she kind of describes his workshop. There's organization and order, and
I like the details.
she takes
there.
care, and it's a very different view again.
Yeah.
You talk about. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, right? He's a creator too, right? Become a creator of new galaxies. So there's the cosmic imagery again. And earlier on, maybe his first introduction in this collection is a comet coming to Earth, destruction, which he kind of references again here, right? I want him to stay this way, but when he returned to Earth, he transformed, and that's kind of bringing it back to her other experiences.
Yeah. I also had a question about the spelling of necklace.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. The beaded necklace.
And then we get more of the amputation there, like you mentioned, Richie, with the Barbie doll.
Prep for surgery, yeah. Necklace. So, I mean, I think that's even what Cheryl mentions again, like a little bit of playfulness in language, right? Losing your mind, necklace, maybe like losing your head too.
Yeah.
Some imagery in that one. Some wild imagery in that one.
And also this feeling of being voiceless and helpless kind of comes back again at the end.
In MRI, we get a lot of the war imagery again, and I really liked this one because a lot of times it's kind of like accusatory, like you left me and I needed you during these moments, and then at the end it's like, well, I wasn't there for him either, you know. So there's a lot of that acceptance and a little bit of guilt too. I think from the speaker.
And then we do get here the mom, right? We don't get much of the mom, but here, you weren't there the moment mom stopped making potato tacos with Mexican rice or vegetable soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that line at the end of that stanza. You weren't there when Blockbuster closed or the moment I turned into salt looking for God. That reference.
Which the new kids on the block won't get the reference there.
think it was an interesting reference, but I guess maybe that was a connection in childhood, like movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's what stood out to me about this one is just like the recognition I wasn't there. Because I do in other earlier poems in the part one that we talked about, there's some attempts to try and understand or look from outside of their own perspective.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting though to have, because I see it as more as acceptance than depression, but I guess like, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like that. We were talking about like the acknowledgement, right? Before you can accept it, you kind of have to.
Yeah, like the realization. Like it's not all on you, like it's on me too, right? So that's its new way of looking at. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I thought the imagery, foxhole, didn't make the last poem of part two is the foxes, right? I think I made that connection earlier of like foxhole as a militaristic thing.
Yeah.
Now shadows, that's one of the most experimental in the entire collection. So how'd you guys go about reading it?
I didn't know how to read this.
I was jumping all over the page.
Yeah.
I even put like
We might
parentheses around things that I thought fit together.
like it's almost like you need a croquis to find your way to.
Yeah, to me, what made most sense was like proximity, like clusters. Clusters seem to make the most sense. But we did find ourselves having to like jump radically from the left of the page to down, and then like read a whole word going down, and it's forcing you to do a lot with your eyes on the page, and that's definitely one of the most interesting structures of poems I think we've seen so far on our podcast.
I'm always interested in like those choices, like how do they go about making these choices and how many spaces between, and what is the significance behind this visual poetry.
Yeah. Well, I liked how like this diagnosis that she gets has to do with like her spine. So then the diagnosis is written down like her spine.
Yeah. That, and also I think you do have at some points dualities, right? Left side, right side, that are kind of competing, right? Wanting to go to Ireland, but being in pain, like just the pain being more prolonged by going down the page. Right?
The two hemispheres.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting read. Yeah, we were just mentioning voices. Vanessa. I wonder if that hit anything about that one. Psalm 29. Always got to look these up.
Yeah. Yeah, the quotes are from the psalm there.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about this one. It's about giving birth at home. Like the water births. This one didn't go as planned. So just like a lot of chaos. I feel like we can tie it back to one of the previous poems of not being there with her daughter when she's taken in the ambulance. So just like, just that chaos around the whole event, I guess. I don't know. It feels weird to say event for that. I guess situation.
Yeah, because there was a plan.
Yeah,
for the
there
birth,
was a plan.
And it completely changed.
Yeah, we see that later too in, this is I think in stage 5. So I'm jumping ahead, but the 4th trimester, like the birth plan and then reality. So there's a lot of like, again, just the realness of motherhood and what you read and what you're told and what actually happens or what could happen.
Yeah.
And there's so many, it's non-linear again, you know? So there's a bit of that too.
And I guess just the last part of the voice, you have like the voice of God. You also have the voice of the midwife. Interesting juxtaposition there. It looks like the psalm has a lot of references to just like nature, right? Kind of nature. So like it kind of pops up.
Yeah. Tying it into how she wanted to have the natural at-home birth.
I don't have anything else
Going
in this
through.
section, but I don't know if you guys want to jump to stage 5 or if you have anything left in this one.
I think I liked at the tone leave a message.
Okay.
There's a lot of sounds here. This one also has a lot of the use of the word or the sound This one deals a lot with postpartum. No, I didn't. It deals a lot with postpartum as well. And just this uncertainty of being a mom and feeling like you're unprepared for it. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you don't hear a lot about the speaker's mom in this collection. But this one, she's calling her mom saying, like, hey, I need help. I think it also ties back into that feeling of helplessness because while she's reaching out for help, she's leaving a voicemail. So it's not being heard right away. Yeah, I really liked this one.
And it goes back to that audio technology, like, you know, VHS or in this case, I mean, because it could also be like, what were they called? Those machines? Answering machines. Yeah. And so, yeah, I like that connection.
I like the way she messes around with the and the and even the him.
Yeah.
Surprised there wasn't HYM. Yeah, wait, that's not how it's spelled. HYMN. Him.
Yeah.
It's like that real isn't you guys.
Oh, no, I know.
Like,
Revisions.
Yep.
Yeah. So as writers and teachers are writing, you know, we think of revision as something else, right? This is something I realize I do a lot. Like I won't finish a sentence. I'll like start revising it before I finish, or like I don't like that's going on. Let me change the complete direction where I want to go with it. So
Yeah.
And revisions aligns with what stage?
Acceptance.
Acceptance. Okay.
I like the way these line up.
I did like a case of phantom limb pain on 59, the first poem in this section. In part because I'm a big fan of Metal Gear and Kojima, and you know, he has a game about this called the Phantom Pain, and so it is about a character who does lose his arm, and it's also about this idea of phantoms, because spoiler alert, if no one has played it, came out years ago anyway, is you play you play, you're not really playing as whom you think you're playing as someone else, and so there's a big reveal at the end. But anyway, so that was, you know, we get the definition here. Phantom limb syndrome is a feeling of sensations in a limb that have been removed. The limb may feel as though it is still attached to the body. This is because the brain continues to get messages from nerves that used to feel for the missing limb. And so once again, we get the idea of, like, you know, amputation and limb loss here personified through the brother, right?
And that reminds me of that short story, playing Metal Gear Solid, Phantom Pain. Kochai, I think.
Yeah, Kochai.
Yeah, and that one's also a little bit like about PTSD and stuff too. So yeah, there's a lot of connections in such a short poem.
Very nice.
Yeah,
I feel like we should do more pop culture conferences.
We should.
I know.
Podcast, you know.
Yeah.
It
I'm
just
down.
makes me think of. Surprised we haven't had any Star Wars references this
Not yet.
episode.
Yeah.
But she makes a reference to a Sadako here, a smokestack that's no longer there, and she talks strangely of fondness, right? Because it's home still. She remembers. That's very prominent in her chapbook, The Lamb's Tale. So I saw that kind of pop up in this one.
Yeah. And then the turning kind of reminding me of Yeats, the Irish poet. And
The Whitening Gyre.
Right. Yeah. What was that one?
The Sinner Cannot Hold. I forget what it's called. I don't remember.
Yeah.
The what? Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to blank. Take me away.
No.
Kind of ties in with nostalgia too. I think of
Yeah.
her being nostalgic of the front yard, playing around on their bikes, churning forever.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the Yeats poem that you were thinking of?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If it were like a game show where you could call in someone, I would call up Kit Ran and be like, "Yo, what was that one?"
Yeah, right.
He's so good with the classics and.
Maybe it was like Easter 1918 or no, and actually that was another one. But then it also inspired No Country for Old Men, I think. But
Funeral market's kind of short. I don't know if you guys have it or anything to say. Like, all I kind of want to say is again, you kind of have like just this concept here of the chronic pain, but still wanting to help others, right? Mm-hmm. Again, brings back to the kittens and wanting to help them, and maybe other hurt beings along the way as well.
mm-hmm.
And sheep are her favorite.
Yeah,
The Lamb's Tale.
yeah. She carries around like a tiny little lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think she has a tattoo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that why she wanted to go to Ireland?
Not the main reason why.
Yeah, but I think she loved seeing them all.
Well, I didn't see any when I went to Dublin, but we were in Dublin, so
Yeah.
I was really bummed.
I know you really wanted to talk about Operation Wetback, right? But I don't know if any of you guys had before that.
No, I think we already kind of touched on the fourth trimester and just like the contrast.
Yeah, I really, just the title Operation Wetback. There's a lot of I can think of like 3 or 4 poems with the same title, and just like in reference to the mass deportations that happened in 1954. The deportation of migrants, a lot of whom were already American citizens, that happened in California and Texas mostly, but in other places of the United States. And this one's really interesting because there's a lot of, I don't know, like a couple references to a sacred clown. I don't know, Jorge, do you
No, you go ahead.
Glad you didn't ask me.
Yeah, no, it's really, again, talking about her father in a different way now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, but yeah, it just stood out to me. It's really different from all the other poems in the collection.
And in that same first stanza, it kind of also gave me a flashback because, I went to Catholic school and, we had the nuns, right? So the nuns would slap the code talkers with a ruler. And I do kind of remember that happening to me in second grade.
Oh, no.
And, just talking out of turn, right? But the Sister Rose was her name. She was really strict.
It's all coming back to him.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Are you
Right.
okay?
You have talked about it before.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Speaking of horror movies, right? Isn't that one that was like The Nun or whatever?
Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting looking at the father here because, his identity is repressed, right? He decided to be anything but brown.
Yeah, the repression of yourself. I like the phrase "sacred clown." Right? There's there's something grand in playfulness, in lightheartedness, but maybe having to push that down, keep it, does something to you as well. One of my favorite lines in the entire collection, is like super strong lines, is "I hid the sacred clown in me and became the kins with missing body parts."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of recursiveness in this collection, right? Going back to earlier pieces.
Yeah.
And to me, this is why like this work is so cohesive, not just the alignment of like the 5 with the 5, but how we're seeing the allusions to itself, to its own work.
Yeah. I mean, here you also have a reference to finding his mother, right? That's kind of making a connection that he still kind of refuses to accept, I guess. Or she tried to save his life, right? Showing who he is. I think that's kind of why she changed up her name, right? Because she hadn't been using Pettinato. And I think finding family members, she adopted it.
Yeah, I think I remember talking about that.
Yeah. We could maybe ask her to explore that too.
Yeah.
Next episode. Number 100.
Yeah, coming back to identity and reclaiming who she is. But I really like that line on 63. He holds on to the past to deny he was there. That was my strong line.
Yeah.
What did you all think of insert title?
It was all crossed out, so I didn't read it. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
That's wild. You're rolling for that one.
It's a joke. Sorry.
It's cool because it's kind of like revisions, but it's also kind of like blocks. So it's like kind of the 2 in 1.
Yeah, but it's crossed out, not blacked out.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah. Because you can still see the vestiges, right? Whatever was
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the painting being painted over. Still seeing that she references earlier in the first part.
The Pettinato sentimiento. Or
Yeah.
Damn, that's dumb. Are we waiting all week for that one?
I wish.
He's like, write it down.
That's good. That's good. We did an event in Las Cruces for mental health awareness, Latinx mental health awareness, and she talked about dancing with silk flags here. And her daughter was doing that during her reading. I think she even posted about it on Instagram.
I think so.
Yeah. So that when I read that, it made me think back to that reading, and her daughter was just
Yeah, she's taking all
waving
kinds of
around.
dance classes.
That's
She's
fun.
going to be a little dancer.
Yeah. These are the last 2.
Yep.
Okay, liturgy.
I liked this one. I liked that, it's short and sweet. I will always grieve for the life we never got to live. Because it is kind of like a callback to like, I don't know, there's those nostalgia elements, but there's also like the trying to keep that past behind us, converting into herself and like waiting so long to find who she actually is and grieving that what her life once was. I guess I could relate to it. So like, yeah, that's kind of it.
Or even just kind of the way she wanted her life to pan out, kind of, I guess, coming to that acceptance that even though it's not that, she still has everything that she has.
I was looking back to see if, because it did remind me of various poems that we looked over, but I can't find it right now. I too like the shortness. This is the only one I did put a star next to. But
Me too.
hey.
Probably one has to do with like Ireland and her dream, no?
Yeah, I think there's a reference, right, to that. Yeah. I mean, it kind of, again, like a lot of stuff, I think it's recursive, right? It keeps coming back. And this is the one I could see getting popular, like in an Instagram post, short and sweet, digestible, like, all right. Becoming viral, if you will.
And she ends the collection with the sounds of kittens. So it's a
Full
it's a
circle.
nice, full circle. Yeah. This was
We did talk about that it was heavy, right? It's
Yeah.
it's heavy.
emotionally
yeah.
tough to get through.
Yeah. But it's a nice window into these issues and things like I had no idea about these, that type of diagnosis and there's so many like that, and it's really, I hate to use the word brave, but it's brave of Cassie to open up about these things and just to be so blunt about it. Like, this is, I don't have all the answers, and this is how I'm feeling, and these are the experiences that I've gone through, and a lot of people that can relate to that will find it.
Yeah, like it opens up that space for people to have these conversations about all of these different diagnoses and postpartum and
Motherhood.
family. Yeah.
So we're gonna get her on. She confirmed.
Yes, she did.
She did. I saw she had her last class the other day. Reflected on that.
Oh, yeah.
So even ask her a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And again, readers, listeners, don't forget to ask questions.
Oh, yeah. Send us your questions. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Literally Literary, recorded at Power at the Pass and brought to you by Border Senses. This episode, we continued our discussion on the 5 Stages of Stuttering by Cassie Holguin-Pettinato. If you haven't read it, we hope we inspire you to pick up a copy. Join us on our next episode and follow us on Instagram at literallyliterary.ep.